What's up, guys? This is Mr. Eldridge, and in today's lesson, we're going to look at the election process in the United States. The nomination process for American elections involves a multi-step procedure that varies for different offices. For presidential elections, candidates seek their respective party's nomination through a series of primary elections and caucuses held in states across the country. In these contests, voters express their preference for a particular candidate, and delegates are allocated proportionally or a winner-take-all based on the results. The goal is to accumulate enough delegates to secure the party's nomination at the national convention. Delegates are individuals who represent their states at the convention where they formally cast their votes for the nominated candidate. The process for nominating candidates for Congress, governorships, and other offices varies by state and party, often involving primary elections or party conventions. Ultimately, the nomination process serves as a vital democratic mechanism for selecting candidates to represent their respective parties in the general elections. The United States Constitution has never specified the process. Political parties have developed their own procedures over time. If you're interested on the history of political parties, check this video on the history of political parties. Some states hold only primary elections, some hold only caucuses, and others use a combination of both. For president, a state's primary election or caucus is usually an indirect. Instead of voters directly selecting a particular person running for president, they determine the number of delegates each party's national convention will receive from their respective state. These delegates then in turn select their party's presidential nominee. So one of the more misunderstood versions of the American process, of course, is the caucuses. So specifically, we're going to talk about the Iowa caucuses. The caucuses are generally defined as a, quote, gathering of neighbors. Rather than going to polls and casting ballots, Iowans gather at a set location in each of Iowa's 1,681 precincts. Typically, these meetings occur in schools and churches, public libraries, and even individuals' houses. Caucuses are held every 2 years during both the presidential and the midterm election seasons. But the ones that receive national attention are the presidential preference caucuses, held every 4 years. The rules of the caucuses processes to determine delegates to national conventions are determined entirely by the party and differ substantially between Democratic and Republican primaries. Candidates must gather a required number of voter signatures to get on the ballot by means of a petition. Independent and minor party candidates are usually required by state law to be nominated by petition. The number of signatures needed for various states are different. So we're going to use Virginia as an example. For a candidate for the United States Senate, governor, lieutenant governor, or attorney general, 10,000 signatures, including the signatures of at least 400 qualified voters from each congressional district within the Commonwealth. For a candidate for the United States House of Representatives, they need 1,000 signatures. Now, it's important to understand that there are different types of primaries in the American election cycle. All right, we're going to talk about 4 major ones. First off, you have the closed primary. Now, a closed primary, only declared party members have the ability to vote. You also have an open primary, where any qualified voter can take part in that election. You have what's called a runoff primary. This is if a required majority is not met, the 2 people with the most votes run again. And then finally, you have a nonpartisan primary where candidates are not identified by their political party. So there is a benefit of a closed primary system. This prevents one party from going in and raiding the other primaries to try to nominate weaker candidates in the opposition of the party. It helps to make candidates more responsive to the party and its platform. It helps make voters more thoughtful because they have to choose between the parties in order to vote in the primaries. There's also a negative of this closed primary system as well. It compromises the secrecy of the ballot because it forces voters to make their party preferences known in order to participate, and it tends to exclude independent voters from the nominating process. Both Washington and California implement a two-winner, nonpartisan, blanket primary by plurality vote. Now, you also have this nonpartisan blanket primary. This is a primary system in which all candidates for the same elected office, regardless of respective political party, run against each other at one time, instead of being segregated by political party. It is also known as a, quote, jungle primary or a qualifying primary. In most cases, there are two winners who advance to the general election, in which case it is called a top two primary. This system theoretically elects more moderate candidates, as winning could require appealing to voters of both parties rather than just one. However, when the primary uses first past the post voting, it is highly susceptible to vote splitting. The more candidates from the same party that run in the primary, the more likely the party is to lose. So let's talk about some various forms of primaries by states and how each state varies. Louisiana's open election primary is a unique voting system that allows all registered voters, regardless of party affiliation, to participate in a single primary election. In this system, all candidates, regardless of their party affiliation, appear on the same ballot. Voters can choose any candidate, regardless of their party, in the primary. If a candidate receives more than 50% of the vote, they win the election outright. However, if no candidate crosses this threshold of 50%, a runoff election is held between the top two candidates, usually a few weeks after the primary is over. This open primary system aims to encourage greater voter participation, reduce political polarization, and ensure that the winning candidate has broader appeal beyond party lines. It's a distinctive approach to elections that emphasize inclusivity and the search for consensus candidates. The popular vote in each state plays a crucial role in determining the electoral vote count through the Electoral College system used in the United States presidential elections. The number of electoral votes a state has is equal to the total of its senators and representatives in Congress. All states, except for Nebraska and Maine, follow a winner-takes-all approach. The candidate who wins the popular vote in a state receives all of that state's electoral votes. As a result, the candidate who wins the most popular votes in a state gains a significant advantage in the electoral vote tally. This system aims to balance the interests of both individual states and the nation as a whole, ensuring that presidential candidates must appeal to a diverse range of states and not just focus on the most populous ones. And it should be noted, too, that in order to win the presidency in the Electoral College, a candidate must receive 270 Electoral College votes. Now, I believe everyone wants more people to get out and vote. COVID in 2020 really changed this election. The use of vote by mail due to COVID greatly increased voter turnout in 2020. Roughly 66% of the possible voting population turned out to vote in 2020. This is different in comparison to the 2016 election, in which only 53% showed up. This is the largest increase since 1992 in the election between Bill Clinton and George H.W. Bush. Voter turnout for the 2022 U.S. congressional elections was the second highest for a non-presidential election year since 2000, with 52.2% of the citizen voting age population participating. We want to make sure that everyone has the chance to vote. The Voting Rights Act of 1965 prohibited voter discrimination based on race, color, or membership in a language minority group. It also required certain places to provide election materials in languages besides English. This greatly increased voter turnout, especially in southern states. Now let's talk about those individuals that don't vote. There are several commonly cited reasons for not voting in elections. Sometimes it's voter apathy or disillusionment with a political system that can lead to a lack of motivation to participate. Some individuals may feel that their vote won't make a difference in the outcome, especially in areas with dominant party affiliations of what are considered safe districts. Barriers such as voter suppression, long lines at polling places, restrictive voter ID laws can also discourage participation, particularly among marginalized communities. Busy schedules, work commitments, and logistical challenges can hinder some from finding the time to vote. Additionally, feelings of disconnect from the candidates or a lack of understanding of the issues can lead to voter disengagement. Addressing these concerns and ensuring accessible, fair, and engaging electoral processes is crucial to increasing voter turnout and fostering a vibrant democracy. And finally, there are states that do not allow certain individuals from voting. Since 2010, 25 states have enacted new voting restrictions, including strict photo ID requirements, early voting cutbacks, and registration restrictions. 15 states have more restrictive voter ID laws in place, including 6 states with strict voter ID requirements. 12 have laws making it harder for citizens to register and stay registered, with often having what are called purges in regards to voter rolls. 10 have made it difficult to vote early or absentee, and 3 took action to make it harder to restore voting rights for people with past criminal convictions. There are 3 classifications of people specifically who can't vote. Of course, anyone under the age of 18 cannot vote. Specifics left to the states, but overseen by the federal government in regards to past convictions, and then some convicted of a felony crime, of course, can lose their right to vote. If you have the opportunity to vote in any election, please get out and go vote to have your voices heard in our democracy. Thanks so much for paying attention to this video. If you have not subscribed to this channel, please go ahead and do so now. Thanks so much. Have a great day.